The story of America is a tapestry woven from threads of ambition, struggle, innovation, and resilience. It's a story that spans millennia, from the deep history of its indigenous peoples to its position as one of the most influential nations on Earth today. Let's explore how this remarkable narrative unfolded. Long before European settlers ever dreamed of a new world, the continent we now call North America was inhabited by indigenous peoples. These societies were far from monolithic. Complex civilizations like the ancestral Puebloans of the Southwest, the Mississippian culture of Cahokia, and the Iroquois Confederacy in the Northeast thrived here. For tens of thousands of years, these nations shaped the land, created trade routes, and developed sophisticated cultural, political, and spiritual systems. But everything changed with the arrival of European explorers in the late 15th century. In 1492, Christopher Columbus landed in the Caribbean, marking the beginning of a new era of exploration and colonization. By the early 1600s, powers like Spain, France, and England had established footholds in the Americas. The English settlement of Jamestown in 1607 planted the seeds of what would become the United States. These colonies were havens for some, like religious dissenters in New England, and economic ventures for others. But they were also built on the devastation of native populations, who faced disease, displacement, and violence, and the enslavement of millions of Africans forced into brutal labor. By the mid-18th century, the American colonies were thriving economically. Yet, tensions simmered between these colonies and Britain, their imperial overseer. Taxation without representation, the legacy of the 7 Years' War, and the desire for self-governance led to a growing revolutionary spirit. In 1776, the Declaration of Independence boldly proclaimed the United States a free nation, and after a grueling war of independence, victory was secured over the British in 1783. However, the young republic faced immense challenges. The Constitution of 1789 became the framework for democracy, but also revealed sharp divisions, particularly over slavery. The new nation began expanding westward in search of land and economic opportunity, but this too came at a cost. Manifest destiny drove settlers across the continent, but it also resulted in the forced removal and devastation of indigenous communities, exemplified by events like the Trail of Tears. By the mid-19th century, the United States was a nation divided. The question of slavery, its morality, its economics, and its future fractured the country. This tension exploded into the Civil War in 1861. For 4 brutal years, Americans fought Americans in the deadliest conflict in U.S. history. The Union prevailed, slavery was abolished, and the Reconstruction era began. But freedom for formerly enslaved people was met with systemic racism, violence, and the enforcement of segregation for decades to come. The Industrial Revolution in the late 19th century transformed America into an economic powerhouse. Railroads, factories, and towering cities became symbols of progress, yet they also highlighted inequalities. Immigrants poured into the country in search of the American dream, but many faced harsh working conditions and prejudice. Meanwhile, the Gilded Age saw sprawling wealth for a few tycoons, while many struggled. As the 20th century dawned, the United States found itself on the global stage, participating in World War I and emerging stronger economically. But it wasn't all upward progress. The Great Depression of the 1930s plunged millions into poverty before World War II turned the nation's focus outward once again. During World War II, America became the arsenal of democracy, and its role in the Allied victory solidified its status as a superpower. The post-war years were marked by immense growth but also turmoil. The Cold War dominated international relations, as America and the Soviet Union vied for influence around the globe. At home, the civil rights movement of the 1950s and 60s pushed the nation to reckon with its promise of equality. Visionaries like Martin Luther King Jr., Rosa Parks, and countless others fought against segregation and discrimination, forcing the country to confront its dark past and present. In the late 20th century, America experienced cultural shifts, technological innovation, and geopolitical dominance. The moon landing in 1969 symbolized the nation's ambition, while the end of the Cold War in the 1990s marked a turning point in global politics. Today, America stands as a global leader shaped by its complex history. It's a nation of incredible diversity, innovation, and resilience. But it also carries the weight of its past, centuries of triumphs, conflicts, and contradictions. The history of America isn't just a story of the past, it's a living, breathing force that continues to shape the world we live in today. And as the next chapters unfold, one thing is clear: the story of America is far from over.